Okay.
Okay, let me begin with a prayer, a mantra. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so this is the second class of Ashtavakara Gita. I want to make a little announcement that next week, since I'll be traveling, we're going to try to do the class, but if there's any technical difficulties, then Paul and Evelyn will continue with their class, and I'll pick it up the following week. So other than that, let me begin. So we're studying the Ashtavakara Gita, which is an Advaita Vedanta text, which means that it's teaching something very unique. I just want to say something about the subject matter of this text and of Advaita Vedanta. According to this text, as we read, you'll see more and more that the text is really teaching that there's just one reality. Ashtavakara is teaching Janaka that there's just one reality, which is pure consciousness, and that's all that there is. There's really no duality, even though it's appearing from the point of view of truth. There's only one unchanging reality, and that's the teaching of Advaita Vedanta. It's a unique teaching because if there's just one reality, there's no God, there's nobody seeking liberation, there's no gurus, there's no need to study or practice or do anything. So the whole teaching is really in ignorance until you realize that there's just one reality. Then teaching is necessary. But when the ignorance is gone, then there's just one self, and we realize there never was any ignorance or any teachers or students or anyone bound. And Ashtavakara is going to talk from that point of view. It's from the absolute point of view. King Janaka in this text is what's called an Uttama Adhikari. He's supremely qualified to understand what Ashtavakara is teaching him. So that there's no much discussion about practicing anything, purifying your mind, karma yoga. That's long. Those are the preliminary steps. We're at the highest teaching between an enlightened sage and a qualified student. So let me just briefly, because the beauty of this text is that when Ashtavakara is talking from the absolute point of view, when we read it, if the mind is prepared, we can intuit the truth of what he's trying to bring out. We get a glimpse of what that might be. That's the beauty of the text. It makes us, there's something that needs investigation. If the text merely does that, if it inspires us to want to investigate more about this teaching, then the text has already served a valuable purpose. Since we are not what would be called the highest qualified students for this knowledge, the best we can do is kind of get an intuition about what they're talking about. but we won't be like Janaka, who you'll see gets the full benefit of this teaching as he's taught it. He doesn't practice anything. He's just going to listen to this first chapter. And in the second chapter, he says, that's it. I got it. So let's just continue. We're up to the 11th verse. If you read the first 10 verses, not like I'm doing it slowly, but read the verses, you get into the flow. The verses are actually written in meter. This is poetry. These verses can be chanted, and they're very beautiful, and they're set where every line has 16 beats in this text. So that's why it's called a Gita, Ashtavakara Gita. It's a song. He's singing to Janaka the song of wisdom. And, but I'm reading it as though it were prose. So now I'm going to begin with the 11th verse. He says, he who considers himself free is free indeed. And he who considers himself bound remains bound. As one thinks, so one becomes. This is a popular saying in the world, and it is true. So let me just say one little thing about this verse. It says, if you think you're free, you're free. If you think you're bound, you're bound. But it doesn't mean that even though you're bound, if you think you're free, or vice versa. What it means is this: if you've realized that you are free, then you think, I am mukta, I am free. Because you know you're free, then you're free. If you say, I am this person, I was born, I'm getting old, I'm going to get sick, then that idea binds you. It's a wrong idea. The correct idea, I am ever free, ever pure, ever shining, that idea, if you know that, then you are free. If you don't know that, then you'll think, I am bound, like everybody thinks, I am bound because I'm a limited individual in the world. So that's my bondage. Having a body is the bondage. And if you think you have the body, I'm bound, then you're bound. But if you know the truth, I am free, then he who thinks he is free in that sense. Because it's not just an imagination. Oh, if I imagine that I'm free, I'll be free. That's not what it means. Merely imagining that you are free will take you nowhere. You have to see the truth of it and know that you are free. So that's how I interpret that verse. The self is the witness, all pervading, perfect, one, free, pure consciousness, without any action. It appears as if it is the world through illusion. Even though the self is always the witness, that's its unchanging nature. It's never the witnessed, which is the world. Out of delusion, we've identified with this body, mind, senses, and ego, which are in the world. And out of that delusion, we are bound. But the self, in its true nature, is the witness. Let me say something about this word witness. Actually, he's going to say it in the next couple of verses, so I won't repeat it. The self is the witness. What that means is it's the witness of everything. Whatever is appearing, whatever is an object, whatever comes and goes, whatever you're aware of is the witnessed. That in which they appear is called the witness. The thoughts are witnessed. The I thought is witnessed. The outside objects are witnessed. In fact, the whole universe is an object in consciousness. Time, space, causality, all the other human beings, they're all objects to the one witness. That's the witness. It's all pervading. What does that mean, all pervading? It means that the witness is the truth of everything. It's the very essence of everything. Nothing that appears to the witness can exist independent of the witness. If there's no witness, there's nothing witnessed. If you take away the consciousness, there's no object of consciousness. So the witnessed has no independent existence. It can't appear without you. But it's not you, because if it was you, it couldn't be an object. It appears to you, but it's not other than you. You're the truth of what's appearing. In that sense, it's like the rope pervades the snake. The truth of the snake is the rope. And in that sense, there's not two things, the pervader and the pervaded. It means that the truth of it is called all pervading. All pervading, it is one. The witness in you is one. There's not, I have my witness, you have your witness, and we all have our own witness. This is the one witness which is not in time or space. It can't be divided because it's the witness of time and space. That is also time, space, causation, every phenomena, including the whole waking state, in fact, is an object to that one witness. The whole waking state in which there's time and space and Vedanta and gurus and Ashtavakara Gita classes, and that whole waking state is an object to the one witness. That's the witness which is called Ekam, one. It never changes. Whether anything appears or disappears, it's unaffected. It is one, it is consciousness. It is actionless. The self never does anything. It can't move. It's not in space. It has no parts, so it can't modify itself. The witness is unchanging, ever the same, actionless, unattached. The witness is not attached to the witnessed, because no matter what happens in the witness is unaffected. If he was attached to the witnessed, when the witness changed, the witness would change. But the only thing that's changing is the witnessed. So the witness is asanga, unattached. It never comes in contact with the universe. Just like the witness of the dream is unaffected by anything that appears in the dream. The witness of the waking is unattached, asanga, unattached, free from desires. the very nature of the witness. Desires are something that are witnessed, but the witness has no desires. Shanti. When at the end of those mantras we go Om Shanti, 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 and they translate it Om, peace, peace, peace. It doesn't mean like let's have peace, no war, or I hope my mind is peaceful, peace, peace. Om Shanti. Shanti is the very nature of the self, eternally silent, eternally peaceful. That's the nature of the self. You don't have to become silent. The self is Shanti. Shanti. But through illusion. What's the illusion? Even though you are always the witness, you take yourself to be the witnessed. That's the delusion. There's no other delusion. You've taken yourself to be the not self. This is the only bondage that we have. The only purpose of this text is to remove that exact misconception. I am fat, I am thin, I am old, I am young, I am happy, I am sad. Those ideas about ourselves are a misconception because I've taken the witness to be the witnessed. All of those are qualities of the mind, happy, sad. Fat is the quality of the body, thin, tall, short, going, coming, actions of the body. But the self is akriya, actionless, asanga, unattached. So the delusion is mixing up yourself, which is always the witness, and saying, I am the witnessed. When you say, I am the witnessed, I am this, even that thought is just an object to the witness. The witness doesn't become fat when you say, I am fat. The witness doesn't become old when you say, I am old. But the thought is what makes us seem as though we are bound. The bondage is not true, it's ignorance. When we remove the ignorance by realizing, I am that, then the delusion, I am this, finally comes to an end. It is through illusion that it appears as if it is of the world. It's a bad translation. The Sanskrit says, samsari vaniva. Even though I'm the witness, I appear as a samsari van, one who is caught up in birth and old age, sickness and death. That's called samsara. That's my condition. How? Out of Brahma, a delusion. It's merely a mistake. If you check your experience, you'll see that, in fact, you're always the witness. Right here, right now. That's your eternal nature. You can't get rid of it. You can't negate it. You can't think it away. It's always shining, always present. 13. Having given up the external and internal modifications and the illusion, I am the apparent self, one should meditate on the self as immutable consciousness and without a second. That really there's no second thing here other than me. When the dream appeared, no second thing was there. When the waking appears, no second thing is there. The only thing that there is the self, and that's why it's called non-dual. My child, 14, You have long been caught in the noose of body consciousness. As soon as the waking state appears, it appears with this body and my identification with it. Automatically, I am this. This is called the pashu, the noose. We're all caught up in the noose of identification with the body. This is really the bondage. Just this, because when you don't have a body, if it's really true that yourself, your true nature, who you really are, is the witness and not the body, then the mistake of thinking that I am this body is the only bondage. And there's one other thing. When I realized I am not the body, and I'll also realize if I'm not the body, then I'm not the senses, because the senses exist in the body, and I'm not the mind, because the mind also is in the body. So when I say body, I mean the body, the senses, the mind, the whole package. This idea that I am this can only be if I've mixed up the subject and the object. There's no other way and if I'm not the body, just think about it. If you're not the body, like when you're in deep sleep, you're not identified with any body. You don't have any identification with senses, mind, ego. It's all gone. At that point, at that time, in deep sleep, do you see the world? You need a body to see the world. You need senses, you need a mind. But the witness has no body, mind, or senses. It's only when the witness is identified with this body, mind, senses that the world even appears. The world can't appear unless I've taken myself as a knower. And to be a knower, I need a body, mind, and senses. But that being a knower, having a body, mind, and senses, is the delusion of mixing up the witness with the witnessed. All I'm saying is that when that delusion goes, you won't see the world anymore. In fact, you never saw the world. If there was really a world that existed, you could have seen it. But the world is an appearance. Even though it seems to exist, just like the dream, it appears to exist, but it has no real existence. So the only thing there is the witness. That means the witness never witnessed anything. In truth, the witness is just the non-dual consciousness. He's called the witness because of the appearance. When the appearance goes, the self is the same witness, but he's not witnessing anything. Even when something appears, the self can't witness anything. You can only witness something if you have a body, mind, and senses. And that's the outcome of ignorance. Something to ponder. My child, you have been caught for chira, a long time. How long have we been caught up in this body consciousness? Well, I'm 70 years old, so when I was born, I started this business, and now for 70 years I've had, that's not the way to look at it. When did the waking state begin? What time did the waking state begin? All you know is the waking state appeared and you're in it, and then there's time. But when did the state appear? Time is in the state. But when did the waking state begin? It's like asking, when did the snake, the apparent snake, begin? Oh, when I saw it, it began. And then I infer, oh, it must have been a baby before that and a liver. But it really had no beginning. It's a beginningless illusion. The idea that I was born, I'm getting old, I'm getting sick, is the same in a dream. As soon as the dream appears, oh, my mother gave birth to me. But when did the dream appear? It doesn't begin in time, because time is in the appearance. It's a beginningless dream. That's the word chira. You've been caught in this noose from beginningless time. This ignorance didn't begin at a particular time, because it's because of ignorance that time itself is appearing. It's because of ignorance that time is itself. So what that means is ignorance doesn't begin in time. As soon as the world appears, there's ignorance. I'm identified with the body. That's the ignorance. It's not that it began when I was born. The idea that I was born is already the ignorance. Some people say, oh, when we're 2 years old, we develop this I am so-and-so idea. So it began when I was 2. But the thought that I was born and I was 2 and I then had this I thought is all part of the appearance. It's a beginningless. Shankara says, Anadi Ananto Nasurgiko Adhyasa. This mixing up of the self and the not self is beginningless. You can't say when it began, because the ignorance is what's making time itself appear. When there's no ignorance, when you abide as the self, there'll be no duality. My child, you have long been caught in this noose of body consciousness. Sever it with the sword of knowledge. The idea that I am the body is a misconception. It's ignorance. And the only thing that can remove it, nothing that I can do can remove everything I do only confirms that I'm the body. Everything I do with my mind confirms that I'm the mind. Everything I try with my senses confirms that I have senses. There's nothing that I could do to get out other than this knowledge that I am not this body. I am the unattached witness. That's the teaching of Advaita. You are that, Tattvamasi. You are not this. To think I am this is the beginningless ignorance. You are unattached, 15, without action, self-effulgent. This is a beautiful Svayam Jyoti, self-effulgent, Svayam Prakasha. The witness is like the sun or a light bulb that's always lit. It never goes out, and nothing is needed to light it up. It's in the light of consciousness that everything appears. It's that light that lights up everything. But the light of consciousness doesn't need another light to light it up. It's self-lit, self-evident, self-established. You don't need any proof for it. It's the consciousness in which all the proofs are taking place, but the consciousness doesn't need to be established by anything. Why? It's self-established, self-evident. You don't need to make it an object. It doesn't need another witness to know the witness. That was, I'll just go off on a little tangent. The Buddhists said there's no such thing as an unchanging witness. They said that the thoughts don't have a witness. The thoughts witness themselves. The thoughts are conscious. You don't need a witness to know the thoughts because the thoughts are self-lit. They're self-known. But Vedanta says, this is the difference between Buddhism and Vedanta, by the way. Vedanta says the thoughts are not self-known. The thoughts appear in consciousness. They abide in consciousness. They're an object to consciousness, and they disappear to consciousness. When the thoughts appear, the thoughts don't know that they appeared because they appeared to who? When the thoughts disappear, they don't know that they've disappeared because they're no longer existent. They disappeared to who? The witness of the thoughts is the true self of Vedanta. The thoughts don't know themselves. You've mixed up the witness with the thoughts. But if you examine your experience, if you do the discrimination, you'll see the thoughts are changing. They're objects, happy, sad. I go, I come, I'm at, all the thoughts, they're appearing and disappearing. They arise, they abide, and they cease. Just like the whole universe arises in you. It abides in you. It merges in you. In deep sleep, every day, this whole apparent world disappears. To who? It disappears to you. I knew nothing. When you say, I knew nothing, you're not denying your consciousness. You're denying the object. I knew nothing. I'm the knower, and there was no object appearing. That's what it means to say, I knew nothing. Not that I'm unconscious. Your unattached action is self-effulgent and without any blemish. This indeed is your bondage, that you practice meditation. This is quite a radical Ashtavakara. For most people, most yogis, they say that you have to control your mind and turn inwards and stop all the thoughts and stop thinking about. But Ashtavakara says, you are ever free. You are ever pure. You are ever actionless. Your only bondage is you want to practice meditation. So from the highest point of view, he's able to say to Janaka, there's no need for meditation if you realize I am ever free, ever pure, ever unattached. Then your only bondage is you want to meditate. Why would you want to meditate if you realize that truth? Your only bondage is that you want to meditate. 16, you pervade this whole universe. It's not that you just pervade all of your thoughts, that the thoughts seem conscious, or that your senses seem conscious, or that your body seems conscious. This is my conscious body, even though the body is as inert as any rock in the field. I've superimposed consciousness on the body. If you chop it up, look through a microscope, you'll never find any consciousness. But I feel that my senses are conscious, but they're just instruments. And I feel like my mind is conscious, but it's just an object to me. It has no consciousness. It appears and disappears just like the body appears and disappears. Just like the whole universe appears and disappears. You pervade this universe, and this universe exists in you. If you can look at the dream universe, you're the truth of it. So you pervade the whole universe, and you're the truth of that universe. There's nothing else there but you. It's the same with the waking state. There's no difference from the point of view of the witness. You pervade both states with your consciousness, and they exist in you. In you, the consciousness, the whole thing is appearing in your consciousness, and you pervade the whole thing because what's ever appearing is not different from you. You're the warp and woof of the whole appearance, just like the rope is the warp and woof of the imagined snake. The imagined dream has only one reality, you, the unattached witness. That's the only reality. You are really pure consciousness by your very nature. You don't have to stand on your head, hold your nose, raise your kundalini. That's your eternal nature. It's just a question of recognizing that fact, not believing it because Ashtavakara said it, or because some guru said it, or because some scripture said it. This is the unique thing about Vedanta. This teaching has to be verified in your own experience. When he says to Janaka, you are the witness of the whole universe, you have to see, am I the witness of the whole universe? It's not an individual teaching. It's a teaching that applies to everybody equally. So we can all, right now, not when you die and go to heaven, and not when you have some mystical state, see 1,000 lights or feel the kundalini running out of your head or whatever. It's not it's seeing the fact. Shankara says, excuse me, for those who don't know, he says, Admaikatva vidya pratipattaye sarva vedanta rabhite. In order to teach the oneness of the self, that there's only the self, and what that means is there's no gurus, there's no Vedanta, there's no gods, there's no heaven, there's no rebirth and previous births and going to. There's only that pure consciousness. That's the only purpose of Vedanta. To make the student realize in his own experience, just like directly as you would experience when you put your finger in fire, you say, it's hot, not because the guru said it, you put your finger in the fire, it's hot. Shankara says, Anubhava avasanatvat, bhutavastu vishayatvat. That this teaching has to culminate in direct experience, and it refers to an actually existing thing, bhutavastu vishayatvat. That here and now, that consciousness, the witness that Ashtavakara is talking about, is an actual thing. It's not some God is in heaven and we don't know if he's really there. And there's no way to know unless I go to heaven after I give up. This is an actually existing thing here and now. The witness is never hidden. It's always svayam siddha. It's never not present. It's never covered over. It's always shining. When anything appears, it's there, ever shining. It's never hidden. But because our minds are extrovert, it seems like 1,000 miles away. You pervade this universe, and the universe exists in you. You are really pure consciousness by your very nature. Do not be small-minded. I am this little person in an infinite universe that'll be here for a very short time, and then I have to depart, and the party will continue after me. That's called Kshudra Chittatam. That's small-minded. Realize yourself to be the infinite, unending, ever blissful consciousness, here and now. You are unconditioned. The body doesn't condition you. Your thoughts don't, I am happy. It seems as though that thought conditions you, but you are unconditioned, immutable. Nothing can affect you. No matter what happens in the dream, you are unaffected. Whatever happens in the waking, you are unaffected. Immutable, formless, of cool disposition, like in deep sleep. That's cool disposition. Unfathomable intelligence. The consciousness of the self has no end. It's unthinkable, ungraspable, unteachable, unknowable. You can never know it as an object. You can't think of it. But it's self-evident. You don't have to think of it. It's the unseen seer, the unknown knower, the unwitnessed witness. You are unconditioned, immutable, formless, cool disposition, of unfathomable intelligence and unperturbed. Nothing can ever perturb your nature. You don't become agitated and then become peaceful. You are ever Shanti. And therefore, you should desire to abide in that consciousness alone, in your true nature. Know that which has formed to be unreal. This is a very difficult verse. It says, Sakaram anritam vidi, nirakaram tu nishchalam. That which has form, you should know that to be unreal. Well, what has form? The universe has form. The objects have form. My body has form. My senses have form. My mind has form. They're changing every minute. They appear and disappear. They're objects. Whatever has form, know that to be unreal. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives the definition, that which is real never changes. And that which is changing can't be real. Here, the same idea. That which has form, that means whatever is an object, whatever you're aware of, can't be real. And what has no form, the witness, what's the form of the witness? How big is it? Is it square, rectangle, triangle? What form is the witness? The witness of all forms, what form is the witness? It has no form, and therefore it never changes. Nishchalam, it's real. That which never changes is real. and know that that which is changing, that which has form, that which appears and disappears is anritam, not real. And therefore desire consciousness alone. Consciousness is formless, unchanging, and real. Whatever appears in consciousness, whatever appears, your thoughts, your emotions, your perceptions, they're all forms, nama-rupa, names and forms. They have no reality because they're changing. And they can't exist apart from the formless consciousness. Know that which has form, know that which has forms to be unreal, and know the formless to be permanent. Through this spiritual instruction, you will escape the possibility of rebirth. If you think you're this body, then you think you were born. And there are some people who have the belief, if I was born, I'm going to be born again. But when you realize I am the witness that was never born, then you realize there's no rebirth. There was no previous birth. There's only the self. That's where this realization takes you. Freedom from birth and death and the idea of rebirth. It's just an imagination rebirth. It's as imaginary as I am born. I am born is an imagination. I am going to be reborn is an imagination. They both appear in that witnessing consciousness, which has no birth and no death. "19. Just as a mirror exists within and without the image reflected in it, so this supreme self, that witnessing consciousness, is just like a mirror. So the supreme self exists inside and outside the body." Let me try to elaborate on this example that Ashtavakara is giving. The mirror has a reflection in it, let's say a face. That face is just an appearance. It exists in the mirror. If you take the mirror away, there can be no face. It exists in the mirror, but that face in no way affects the mirror. It's in it, but in a certain sense, the mirror exists outside, free from the face. It's unattached. Even though the face appears in the mirror is really unattached to the face, it's outside. In the same way, even though the appearance of this body appears in the consciousness is outside. It's, in terms of the example of the mirror and the reflection that's superimposed, that reflection, the mirror, in relation to the reflection, the mirror, the reflection exists in the mirror, but the mirror is outside the reflection. In the same way, the whole universe appears in me, but I am outside of the universe. You can think about that. And then for the last verse, he says, just as the same all-pervading space, Sarvagata Akashaha, the space that pervades everywhere, in ordinary life we think of space as infinite, going everywhere without end. No matter how far you can go a little further. There's no end to space, so it's all pervasive. That's the idea. So just like space, which pervades the whole universe, the all-pervading space is inside and outside the jar. There's one space. When I make a jar, I can say, oh, there's space outside the jar and space inside the jar. The spaces become limited when I talk about it in terms of the jar. The space is inside the jar, but really the space is through the jar and outside of the jar. It's not limited by the jar. Even though the self appears to be existing inside this body, mind, and senses, in fact, it's just like the clay, the space. It's not, in truth, in any way limited because of this. Like the space is not limited because of the jar. We just say jar space because of the jar. In the same way, the self that seems as though limited because it's identified with this body, in fact, is the all-pervading self that pervades even space. Just as the all-pervading space is inside and outside a jar, so the eternal, all-pervasive Brahman, the word Brahman means absolute self, the supreme reality, your true nature is called Brahman. So the all-pervading Brahman exists in all things. There's nowhere where you can go where your consciousness is not. Wherever you go, that witness is there. You can't get rid of it. It's like putting a lamp on your head and going into a dark room and looking for some dark space. You can never find it because the light's on your head. You can never find the absence of that light at any time. You can't think it away and you can't negate it. And it pervades everything that appears. That's the nature of the self. So this is the end of the first chapter of the Ashtavakara Gita. Ashtavakara has now told everybody, King Janaka, and over his shoulders, us, what the true nature of the self is according to Advaita Vedanta. The next chapter is Janaka heard this teaching and he's going to relate what he understood by hearing these 20 verses. We'll end it with that. Questions. I think we have 5 minutes or so. If anybody has any questions on this first chapter or anything that I've said or would like to make any comments, you can unmute yourself and we can discuss. Okay. All right. So I hope to now do the second chapter in the next class. And I'll try to pick up the pace now that we're covering it so that we can get the general idea of what Ashtavakara is trying to present to us. I hope that somebody's getting something out of this. The only way you can get anything out of this is to introvert your own mind, take your stand in that witnessing consciousness in you, and from that point of view, you'll see that everything that Ashtavakara is saying is exactly in accordance with your own experience. we'll end it with that. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Thank you all.